Thank you for coming on into the live and sharing your essence with me in this eternal moment of which we all share an inextricable and inexorable part. Thank you for doing your part, for coming on in each and every day, and we'll do the same without wasting a single second of your time. Bada bing, bada boom, we go into the charts. So Bitcoin got a big slam to the downside to the tune of 11.4%. So one thing, we were saying that we could come up to that 46K region, but if you recall, we were talking about the 3-day cross down event and possibly coming slamming to the downside, and that 3-day closed in a furious way to the downside. So let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick, and then we'll go look at the liquidity. So basically what we were warning about on the channel multiple times, we were out shopping at Costco and driving home and missed that slam to the downside. But this cross down event had you at hello, saying that this 3-day potentially would close bearish. So if you caught a short up here, congratulations into that resistance like a boss. 45,697 was the location to grab it. And do we go lower? We have this 236 at 42,114. Do we hold the zone and continue higher, or reject and make a C leg down to the 618 down here? That is the question. So let's go look at the liquidity heat map. So we're going to try to wean ourselves off of high block because we found a free alternative. So what is the liquidity heat map, you say? Well, people lock that liquidity into the charts to get burnt to a crisp by the market maker for not using a stop loss, and we get to see what those crispy characters are, so let's do it now. So here we had this 45.5 region, and it broke through this liquidity, eating up some of these millions, $30 million or so.
Fatality.
And then it came down to some higher time frame pools here on the 3-day. If we go into the 3-day, there's millions of dollars of characters. Most notably, there's hundreds of millions, 59, 60, 93, 156, all of these characters all the way down to here. All these longs paying the exorbitant fees to open their leverage for the long eliminated.
Fatality.
And where does it stand now? Well, there is some liquidity up in this region, 51 million at 43,152, 43,255, and 9 million at 43,410. Currently a little bit more up in this candle over to the left here, up at 43,358. Do they continue to retrace up to here and do the Asia fade down into the liquidity below? Let's go see what lurks below on the weekly. The weekly has 154 million down here at 41,865. That caught the wick up here. There is 100 million up at that 43,152 region, a little bit more thick of a band, 74 million at 43,255, and 43,358, 98 million up here. Granted, you had a bunch up in this region. We were looking for a potential hit to that 46K yesterday. One thing that would have prevented you from taking a long yesterday, we were talking, just to hold ourselves to the flame, we were talking about possibly breaking out here and going to 46K. I deleted it because it didn't play out, but we were saying we could possibly come up to here and reject. One thing on our indicators here that we had was on the 15-minute, we had, wait a minute, why did it disappear? Sometimes it displays and sometimes it doesn't, but in the moment it displayed. So we were coming up to here. No. So you don't need somebody to tell you what to do, or you can look at the fatigue and judge accordingly. As we were coming up to here, we had some nukes that printed here just before the drop. Now, I had this, where was it? In the crypto chat. Before the large play, we were seeing this nuke twice, and then we were talking about this potentially fatiguing. And sure enough, it ripped to the downside here with a fury. So the nukes had you at hello for that market fatigue, and boom. And that is how an indicator that works plays out. What is this little bit of happiness? We can make an aside here. This is momentummaster.info. Link in the description for more. You can go down to features, toggle everything at your leisure. Go ahead and hit the button for the baselines, the trend cloud, the stochastic array with the nukes and the rockets, and dynamic alerts to your phone that keep you plugged in so you don't need an alert from anybody. All right, so London took it up and then took it up a second time and dumped it pre-market into New York, all the way down, and came down into this region. So liquidity, let's look at the liquidity again. By the way, we could turn on our heads up display now because we already turned on Momentum Master. So is there more to come to the downside here at the 40K region? All this liquidity on both sides is now gone. So we have to go to higher time frames to see what exists. So down here you still have some, you have some at 40K. They have a general reset. They hit the reset button, it looks, on this entire range. So basically everything sub 40K, or they can come up to the 46K. It's like a fresh reset. They have some liquidity building here and some liquidity building here. Now they can completely break it down, or they can break it up and bring it down. Overall, now you have more liquidity to the downside. So you have this large 18 billion down at 34K, and single billions all the way down beneath that. But basically more protected positions probably of market makers and whales up in this region as they start to play with the liquidity. So possibly coming in the immediate vicinity to that wick over here at 41,865, 154 million there. First coming up into that 43,410, 43,358 region. So let's go ahead and look into the current state of affairs and try to mark out the pools. So there's a BPR fair value gap in here. If we go to a lower time frame, we can see there's something in here. This is most likely that 358 region here, 43.3 up in here. So that's one liquidity pool looking at this 43.152 and 43.255 and 43.358. So possibly wicking up into the 43.358 up here into this candle up here, this BPR, and then coming back down. That is on this little heat map here. There's a thicker pool, but it's, and there's 74 million up at 43,770. 43,770 is another gap up in this region here, and you got some pool in this vicinity too, just sub 40K. You have a wick up in here, and this basic zone is also a resistance point. So as it stands right now, you could basically come up to one of these regions, reject off of that point, or reject off of this point to possibly come lower for a C wave. There is a wick that needs to be recovered over here, and you have some wicks on the side over here. If we go to the 6 hour, there's some liquidity zones we swept. This guy that we had up for a while is gone. Rest in peace to him. We have to go into work today, so we have to leave a bit early. So we're going to make this analysis short but sweet. Okay, so does this 236 hold at the 42,114 region? This was where we had the inflection point to the upside. We came back here at the cloud. Are we going to see a rise up to recover some of this vector and head back down? There is some bearish resistance over in this region at 44.47 that we could be resisting as we head up into that liquidity that we just went over. Technically we have high block. We'll see if high block coincides, if it gives us a better image. Let's go ahead and look at it. Does it give us a different picture than what we just looked at? Is it worth the fee that we pay for it monthly and share with you for free? Looks like it has the same amount. Looks like there's a larger amount up at 44.40K here, a thicker band. It does give you a thicker resolution on what the liquidity looks like. I will not deny that. It is definitely better than what this is. If you go to the 12 hour, interesting. If we go to the 24 hour, so they do show that 44,699 region. It just doesn't have it in thick amounts like it does here. So there's a $577 million character at 44,111 that they could come back into at 44,004. That coincides with the resistance level over here and the top of this fair value gap, So if it comes up to that point and rejects, we would not be surprised. And let's go ahead, and that would be your ABC pattern, because you're coming up and potentially coming down into that wick. There's a wick here. That V-shaped is unnatural. It wants to recover that imbalance forthright for the most part. Respecting the super trend, 3.whatever%. So coming back into some of this liquidity over here on the 1 minute. Your imbalance to the tune of 10 billion in short liquidity on the 1 minute time frame. Coming back into some of this would make sense, just like we did with the longs. And then fatiguing and possibly coming lower. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the chat real quick, and then we'll look at the broader markets. We got to be out of here in the next 10 minutes. Have a great Shul. Thank you, Steven. All right, so looking at the 15-minute, reclaiming the cloud here on the 15, getting a little bit of curvature here. Ambiguous at best though, and we have yet to recover some unnatural wicks to the downside. So looking at the hourly does have the cross up of the baselines here. You have this baseline cross over here that, if it holds this region, could come up to these liquidity zones up in this region. And if you go to the 4 hour broke the cloud and turned it bearish forthright, came back, kissed the cloud in a bearish manner, looking to potentially accelerate to the downside to that 618. 6 hour cloud disrespected and closing candles beneath it. Looking at the 12 hour also looking bearish, ultimately scaring out the longs indeed. Daily cloud is the only thing that is holding right now. So does the daily time frame. You had a cross up to an immediate cross down as it went into that liquidity up there. Do we see some sort of continuation upwards here? This is Thursday, January 4th, midweek reversal day. So it could go up to go down again, midweek reversal. Asia generally, if they pump, normally fades into London. So you could look, if there's a pump from now in the Asian afternoon, then we could be seeing some acceleration to the downside with London and New York. Okay, so we have some gaps up here. This could be a breakaway. We'll see. Overall, this wick is more enticing to me. I'm seeing more of a downside continuation sweep. And yeah, looking at the 6 hour. Let's go to the broader markets real quick. We're seeing Dixie take off just before the drop too. Dixie went all the way up to the deviation levels, coming up to these gaps. It was holding this range and just broke through all these trend-based fib levels of the bullish nature. NQ also taking a rip to the downside, just like Bitcoin, and seeing all of these levels came down to that. We put a little idea out before bed and it came down to that idea perfectly. Check this out. We put this out yesterday. Where did we put that? No, wrong one. Oh, it doesn't show here. Son of a gun. Well, we put it out anyway, and wow, that came down to that perfectly. Interesting. there was a little gap over here we were looking at for it to come down to, and sure enough, that was just after. So NQ got a little bit of a rip to the downside continuation. We had nukes up in here. If you saw our latest video on Thursday last week, we were talking about a short over here, and that was the tippity top of it all. So looking at total getting a rip and continuation, not even getting a bounce back here. So Bitcoin bounce doesn't even show on this total chart because the total 3 just got absolutely destroyed. We were talking about total 3 getting a retrace at that zone. We didn't expect it in that manner, but sure did from our analysis. We were back here looking at this C wave and the alts got destroyed. Let's look at Matic for my man Steven. How's that doing? So it came up to that fair value gap region. Let's see. So it came just into the precipice of the fair value gap, did not break through. So we were saying if there's a rejection up in this region, watch out for your longs. Only if you can make it above this 50% level, then you can get up to this region. Should have left it at here. And yeah, that was a massive dump. We were also looking at Beam from a MMA Mark. So let's see how that worked out. Came all the way down to this pool here. Let's see MMA Mark real quick. We were looking at Beam. We said if it comes down to this zone, we'll be a little bit more interested. It came down to a 618 and it even came down into the 786 bearish trend-based fib level and came down into this region that we were talking about. We said if it came down to this region, we would be more interested. Let's talk again when it gets there. And sure enough, it went there, boomed back up for 33%. So if you were patient and weren't eager to get in up here and waiting for that pocket region, that confluence had you at hello, you would have had an experience of drawdown from that point of like 9%. So you could have used some support and resistance levels, but that was a decent analysis for that too, played out. It respected that bearish 236 nicely, so we were not looking at longs for that. Okay, so Bitcoin looks like it's getting a little bit of a fade here as it comes into some of these longs that breakout traded down here. 33 million in long liquidity at 42,573. Let's see if that shows up on the free one. 42,555 has some $3 million character. 8 million at 42,505. 42,573. Yeah, basically interesting. If you're wondering what this free heat map is, you go to coinglass.com/liquidation levels or something like that. Liquidation data, and then from there you can select heat map. Free. Can't beat that price tag. So looking for a potential short opportunity to continue down to this wick. I'm not interested right now. I can see that there is some liquidity up above, so I'm going to be patient and strike while the iron's hot. I'll get an alert to my phone and see if it can come up to this point and then make that kind of play up here to come down. We will see. Does it get to 44K and breach and negate that 44K idea at 43,905 and hold a candle beneath that zone? Then we can basically take it possibly down to the 39K region. We will see. We will see indeed. And that is my story, and I'm sticking to it, folks. I got to get going. So thank you for coming on into the live and sharing your essence with me in this eternal moment of which we all share an inextricable and inexorable part. Thank you for doing your part, for coming on in each and every day. And we'll do the same, bringing the fire, the accuracy, the precision, all that fun stuff. And we'll catch you on the flip side.